Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gaz Gonzalez. Today, we're exploring a quiet revolution, a counterculture that's challenging the very foundation of modern consumerism. It's called minimalism, but this isn't just about clean lines and tidy closets. It's a radical rejection of materialism. Let's unpack what it really means. Minimalism is the intentional rejection of materialism. It's about choosing simplicity, clarity, and purpose over excess, clutter, and consumption. It has four core values. The first one is intentional living. Every item serves a purpose or brings joy. A second, it would be environmental sustainability. Less consumption, less waste. A third, meaningful relationships, prioritizing people over possessions. And finally, mental clarity, reducing clutter to reduce anxiety. Now, why is minimalism a counterculture? Unlike a subculture, which coexists within mainstream society, or a microculture, which is small and localized, minimalism actively resists dominant cultural norms, especially the capitalist obsession with more. It's not just opting out, it's pushing back. Minimalism first appeared in the 1960s as an art movement. Think stark canvases and geometric sculptures. But the lifestyle movement gained traction after the 2008 financial crisis, when people began questioning the value of consumerism. Influential voices like the minimalist Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus helped popularize the idea through blogs, books, and documentaries. Today, minimalism has evolved into digital minimalism, or reducing screen time and tech clutter, eco minimalism, living sustainably with fewer resources, and nomadic minimalism, living out of a backpack while traveling or working remotely. This movement is global and culturally diverse. In Japan, minimalism is inspired by Zen Buddhism and traditional aesthetics. It's about emptiness, tranquility, and mindfulness. In Denmark, it's tied to hygge, Hygge, a cozy, intentional simplicity that nurtures well being. In the United States, minimalism shows up in tiny homes, digital detoxes, and decluttering challenges. In Germany, it blends functional design with sustainability. And here in Costa Rica, the Pura Vida lifestyle aligns beautifully with minimalist values, prioritizing nature, relationships, and peace over possessions. Minimalism is not only active, it's growing. As people seek mental health, environmental balance, and deeper meaning, this counterculture offers a powerful alternative to the chaos of modern life. Minimalism isn't just about having fewer things, it's about having more life. It's a quiet rebellion against the noise of consumer culture. And it's happening all around the world. Whether you're decluttering your closet or rethinking your digital habits, you're part of a movement that's redefining what it means to live well.
To talk a little bit more about minimalism, we need to focus on main areas permeating this counterculture. I am Elena, and in this section, we will go deep into some symbols and expressions of minimalism that anyone can find in spaces and rituals, music and language, and fashion. Let's begin with spaces and rituals, more specifically, architecture and lifestyle. Minimalist architecture has become more popular over the last few years, and these are some examples of minimalist designs, like the bathroom that you can see there in the picture, and also this kind of a room with a table and the chairs. This is actually the house of Rick Owen, who's an inside designer that offered Vogue a tour over his house. And in the picture, we can see fundamentals, neutral colors, structure, shape, and light and space, which are essential elements of minimalism. Why? Because they highlight, they emphasize the atmosphere. So we don't focus on objects or luxuries. What we want to emphasize is the atmosphere created, which is kind of peaceful in these images. And now, this is very important because this type of architecture comes with minimalist lifestyle. Why? Because again, we want to emphasize peace. And here you can see some pictures that I took from a YouTube channel that is called Malama Life. In this channel, a woman that is the owner of the channel talks about how tiny minimalist lifestyle adjustments improved her life and rituals performed in a daily routine such as appreciating without owning, decluttering, and a slow pace, all elements of a minimalist lifestyle helped her. So again, all these are elements that emphasize this kind of lifestyle that is peaceful, that you find quiet and calmness. So again, these spaces and rituals are some symbols of minimalism. To talk about music and language and its relation to minimalism, I wanted to exemplify this part with Sade, a singer that you may or may not know. Actually, I am playing one of her songs in the background, which is No Ordinary Love, the one that you can see there as well. If you listen to close to this song, you can find these beats and sounds that are very repetitive and simple. We don't have like a lot of instruments playing in the background or a lot of notes. And these are some elements of minimalism, which according to Robert Estrin is what characterizes this type of music. This is that very simple repeating patterns and textures are the highlights of minimalist music. And also, it is not only about the sounds and the beats, we also have the lyrics. And actually, as you can see in the image that I posted there, you can see very repetitive words and also ideas. So the singer repeats no ordinary love, love, love all over the song. And we stick to that. And actually, this is very simple. And this is also what Eva Sangirl explained, that lyrics can be a mirror of society. Why? Because as we have this culture of minimalism, we have that in music as well. So we wanted less and we got less. And now we're going to talk about fashion and minimalism. As you can see here in the picture of the models, we have clothes full of neutral colors and we don't have accessories or jewelry. And this is actually a characteristic of minimalism in clothes. So, some of the symbols of or expressions of minimalism are the color palette and also the fabrics used in this with these clothes. In a color palette, we have a combination of blacks, navies, grays, browns, and French blues, which are characteristics of the minimalist clothes. And also, I wanted to emphasize the fabrics that are used with this type of clothes, which are wool, linens, and heavy cotton. Why do we have this in minimalism? Well, because we don't want a flamboyant style. What we want is just to feel comfortable with what we are wearing in that moment. Of course, this doesn't mean that if you're going around with yellows and oranges and pinks and fuchsias, you're going to be weird or something. No. Minimalism just wants people that don't feel comfortable with these colors to feel well and to feel like they are in their own style with minimalism. And lastly, I just wanted to mention very briefly the evolution of fashion from flamboyant styles and then minimalism. So, for example, here we have in the 80s and in the 90s these flamboyant colors, and it's an explosion of them because you have reds, you have yellows, you have pinks, and all these that are very, very flamboyant. Then in the 2000s and also in the 2010s and also in the 20s, what we have here is just like a combination of these light colors, blues, whites, and also light greens. And this shows perfectly how minimalism is here as a counterculture because it's the opposite of what we had before.
Hi, my name is Jimena, and I'm sick, so sorry about my voice. But, anyways, in this section of the blog, we are going to focus on the relationship between minimalism and mainstream culture. First, minimalism has moved from a critique of consumer capitalism into a mainstream aesthetic and lifestyle brand. And in that transition, elements of the movement have been absorbed by commerce and pop culture, often stripping away from the original anti consumer idea. As you can see here, and as you probably know, uh, we have a lot of different examples of branding appropriation of minimalism, starting with Apple, then Muji, and then Uniqlo. All of these companies use minimalism in order to sell more goods. The anti-clutter look becomes a marketing aesthetic rather than an ethical stance for these companies. Lastly, as you can see here, we have IKEA, that is a furniture and decoration company. And this company has different campaigns regarding less is more, in which they turn decluttering into a consumption event. And basically, the premise of this is that you need to buy storage to consume less, which is pretty ironic. So, as I previously mentioned, there is a relationship between pop culture, media, and minimalism. And here we have some examples. First, we have Marie Kondo. I don't know if you remember this show. It was a Netflix show from 2019. And this show popularized decluttering and reframed this idea of minimalism as a wellness ritual rather than a structural critique of overproduction. We also have minimalism in film, such as here. This film used aesthetic minimalism in order to tell you about aspirational high tech urban life, in which you have a lot of technological devices, but everything in your life it's pretty empty. We also have other examples such as dream home makeover or minimalist home segments that are on Netflix and also on TV. And more recently, we have this trend going on about minimalism on Instagram and TikTok. And it presents this visual grammar of white walls, beige clothing that functions as a lifestyle flex and fit optimization rather than refusal of consumer culture. So, in order to finish with this section, I would like to address the relationship between music, fashion, and minimalism, and the influence that minimalism has on music and fashion. So, first, as you can see here, minimalism influenced set designs and music sections. And here we have the example of Drake's Hotline Blink. And this is a pretty popular video. It has 2 billion views on YouTube and it uses minimalism because through all the video you just see Drake in the middle and then the rest is white. Also, we have the example of lo-fi study playlists that are pretty minimal sound going on, and it is used to concentrate and to study. We also have the idea of the quiet luxury aesthetic. It uses neutral palette, no logos, and the luxury coded. You can see it through the absence of things. And lastly, we have the capsule wardrobes, and it was popularized by influencers, and it is a performative minimalism that it's used by people in order to declutter their wardrobe.
In general, what minimalism critiques is that most people believe that their happiness depends on materialistic aspects that provide instant gratification, and they let advertising convince them that they need all those products that are promoted, even though it is not true. And this idea of finding happiness or filling the inner void by buying more and more products is related to the American dream, which has increased significantly in material terms. This means that people often sacrifice their well being to earn more money so that they are able to buy all that they want, including the most luxurious and expensive cars and houses. Instead, minimalism challenges this idea by claiming that one can achieve happiness just by leading a simple life with the aspects that bring value to it. For example, pursuits, hobbies, skills, and interests. In addition, minimalists tend to be opposed to advertising because they argue that advertising and social media create the illusion of how our lives should look in order to pressure us into consuming so we can get as close to achieving a perfect life. And they think that this idea of the life that we all should have, or the perfect life, is harmful for society because companies seek to engender dissatisfaction with one's life, perpetuating a cycle of consumerism. And these companies also create a sense of dissatisfaction with one's possessions to motivate consumers to purchase an improved version, such as smartphones, or a more trendy or fashionable product such as clothes, shoes, and accessories. And minimalists have also critiqued the practice of companies using advertisements on games and social media to target children directly, so they can instill the belief that life is centered on excessive consumption or the accumulation of material possessions that are not truly necessary. Also, besides focusing on reducing the overall consumption, some minimalists all aim to avoid certain mainstream brands and products that harm the environment, animals, or society. So they are not minimalists are not against consumption. They are against certain brands, as I mentioned before, or against capitalist consumption or excessive consumption.
My name is Valeria, and today I will talk about how minimalism shapes identity. I will explain the different identities that appear in this lifestyle, who feels included or not, and how people use minimalism to reclaim, resist, and reimagine themselves. First, let's talk about how minimalism shapes and express identity. Minimalism shifts the focus from external things like money or possession to what is inside of the person. It shows that identity comes from our values, experiences, and relationships, and not from what we owned. For example, someone may choose to live with only a few clothes or a few things, not because they cannot afford more, but because they want to focus on spending time with friends or doing other activities more important. Also, minimalism gives a sense of freedom by rejecting debt and the overwork that often comes with buying too much things. People can, people can feel happier and less stressed. And also, it helps them to take control of their life and focus on what really matters. Now let's talk about the alternative identities. One is the conscious consumer. This is a person who selects what to buy carefully, thinking about value and real need instead of just following trends. For example, they might buy secondhand products rather than buy in big stores like Bershka or Nike, let's say. Another identity is the experienced oriented person. This type of person focuses more on life experiences, relationships, and personal growth. For example, they might spend money on travel, on learning new skills rather than buying more clothes or more objects for their house. um, and these identities show how minimalism allows people to live in a way that reflects their values rather than society's expectations. Moving on, let's talk about who feels included or excluded in minimalism. People who join communities that reject consumer culture, such as minimalist or eco friendly groups, often feel a strong sense of inclusion and support because they share similar goals and values. In contrast, people who focus on material possessions or feel pressured by social expectations may experience exclusion as their priorities clash with the minimalist lifestyles that values simplicity over status. Finally, minimalism allows people to reclaim autonomy. They select to ignore messages that say their worth depends on what they own, taking back control of their lives and choices. Second, minimalism helps people resist consumer culture by selecting to stop habits like buying a lot of products or following every trend. They avoid the to pressure to always keep consuming. And finally, minimalism helps people think again about who they are and what truly matters in their life. They can build a way of living that follows their own values instead of what society tells them to do.
As a group reflection, we view minimalism not just as a lifestyle, but as a meaningful resistance to consumer excess. It's a countercultural stance that reclaims time, space, and attention, values often lost in hyper materialist societies. Minimalism challenges dominant ideologies of consumption and productivity. Its impact is visible in architecture, media, and mental health discourse. We believe it fosters sustainability, emotional clarity, and deeper human connection. As a group, we relate to this movement both personally and philosophically. Some of us practice it fully, living with intention, decluttering and prioritizing relationships. Others engage partially, inspired by its principles, but adapting them to our cultural and economic realities. While we embrace its core values, we recognize that minimalism can sometimes be portrayed through a privileged lens, accessible mainly to those with financial stability. We advocate for inclusive minimalism, one that honors diverse cultural expressions, economic context, and lived experiences. Minimalism isn't about having less, it's about living more. What's one thing you could let go of today to live more intentionally? If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.